I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. What I'm about to tell you will shock you, but I promise by the end, you'll understand why sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who hurt us deepest. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm 72 years old. 2 weeks ago, my own daughter locked me out of my house in the middle of a Chicago winter while I was recovering from chemotherapy. She changed the locks, drained my bank accounts, and left me standing in the freezing cold with nothing but a trash bag full of my clothes. But here's what she didn't know: I built half the skyline in this city. I own the house she tried to steal through a trust she knew nothing about. And by the time I was done with her, she learned the hardest lesson of her life. You don't underestimate a woman just because she's older. This is the story of how I lost everything and got it all back, plus justice. The oncologist's office smelled like antiseptic and artificial lavender. I sat in the chair, my hands folded in my lap, while Dr. Anderson adjusted his glasses and studied the scans on his computer screen. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the only sound in the terrible silence. "Mrs. Mitchell," he finally said, turning to face me. His expression was carefully neutral, the face doctors practice when they're about to deliver bad news. "I'm afraid the biopsy results confirm our concerns. You have stage 2 pancreatic cancer." The words hit me like a physical blow. Pancreatic cancer. I'd lost 2 friends to pancreatic cancer in the last 5 years. I knew what those words meant. "How long?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "With aggressive treatment surgery followed by chemotherapy, we're looking at a 5-year survival rate of around 65%. But Sarah, that's if we move quickly. I want to schedule you for a Whipple procedure within the next 2 weeks. I heard a gasp beside me. I'd almost forgotten Lisa was there. My daughter had insisted on coming to the appointment with me, had held my hand in the waiting room, had whispered that everything would be okay. Now she covered her mouth with both hands, tears spilling down her carefully made-up face. "Oh my God. Oh, Mom. Oh my God." I reached over and took her hand. It was cold. "It's going to be fine, sweetheart. Dr. Anderson says we caught it early. Stage 2 isn't stage 4. "But pancreatic cancer," Lisa's voice broke. She looked genuinely devastated, her blue eyes so much like her father's, swimming with tears. "That's what killed Aunt Margaret, and she only lasted 8 months. Every case is different," Dr. Anderson said gently. "Your mother is otherwise in excellent health for her age. She's a fighter. We have every reason to be optimistic." Lisa nodded, squeezing my hand harder. "What do we need to do?" "Whatever it costs, we'll handle it. Mom, you're not going through this alone. I'm here. I'll take care of everything." Something in my chest loosened at those words. Robert had been gone for 5 years now, and I'd been so lonely. My daughter and I had grown apart since she married Matthew, too busy with her real estate career to visit much, always rushing off the phone when I called. But now, in this moment of crisis, she was here. My little girl, my only child. "Thank you, baby," I whispered. We spent the next hour going over treatment plans, surgical options, and recovery timelines. Lisa took notes on her phone, asked intelligent questions, and scheduled follow-up appointments. She was organized, efficient, and supportive. For the first time in years, I felt like I had my daughter back. "I'm so proud of how you're handling this," I told her as we walked to the parking garage. January in Chicago is brutal, and the wind cut through my coat like a knife. I was already shivering, though I didn't know if it was from cold or shock. "Of course, Mom." Lisa wrapped her arm around my shoulders. She was taller than me now, or maybe I'd just shrunk with age, and she guided me toward her white Range Rover. "You're my mother. I love you. We're going to get through this together." She drove me home to my brownstone on Dearborn Street. I'd lived there for 30 years, ever since Robert and I bought it for cash back in 1994. It was a beautiful home, 3 stories of classic Chicago architecture, with the original hardwood floors, high ceilings, and a fireplace I'd restored myself. Robert and I had poured our hearts into this house. It was where we raised Lisa, where we hosted Thanksgiving dinners, where Robert took his last breath 5 years ago after his sudden heart attack. "Do you want me to come in?" Lisa asked as she pulled up to the curb. "No, honey. I'm just going to lie down for a bit. This is a lot to process." "I understand." She kissed my cheek. "Call me if you need anything at all." "I mean it, Mom." I watched her drive away, then climbed the front steps slowly. My hands were shaking as I unlocked the door, not from fear of the cancer, but from exhaustion. I was 72 years old and I'd just been told I might die. Inside the house was quiet and cold. I turned up the thermostat and made myself a cup of tea, but I couldn't drink it. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the photograph of Robert that I kept there. He was smiling, his arm around my shoulders, taken at Lisa's college graduation 20 years ago. "I wish you were here," I whispered to the photograph. "I don't know if I can do this alone, but I would have to." That's what you do when you're a builder. You figure out the foundation. You plan the structure and you build it one brick at a time, even when you're terrified it might all see. 2 weeks later, Lisa showed up at my door with a manila folder tucked under her arm and a worried expression on her face. I'd just gotten home from my pre-operative appointment at the hospital where they'd explained the Whipple procedure in detail that made my stomach turn. They were going to remove parts of my pancreas, duodenum, and bile duct. Recovery would take months. "Mom, we need to talk about something important," Lisa said, settling onto my living room couch. She was wearing a cream-colored pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill, and her dark hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She looked every inch the successful real estate broker she'd become. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I've been thinking about the surgery. About what happens if—" She paused, her eyes getting misty. "If something goes wrong, Mom, you don't have any legal protections in place. If you're incapacitated during surgery or recovery, all your assets could be frozen. Your bank accounts, this house, everything." I frowned. "I have a will, Lisa. Your father and I made sure of that years ago. A will only matters after you die. But what if you're in a coma? What if you can't make decisions for yourself? The state could get involved. Probate court could freeze everything. And hospitals, they'll put liens on your property to cover medical costs." My chest tightened. I hadn't thought about any of this. I'd been so focused on just surviving the surgery that I hadn't considered the practical implications. "What do you suggest?" I asked. Lisa opened the manila folder and pulled out several documents. "I talked to a lawyer, a friend of Matthew's, who specializes in estate planning. He prepared these for you. It's a general, durable power of attorney. It gives me the legal authority to manage your finances and make decisions on your behalf if you're unable to do so." She spread the papers on the coffee table. They were covered in dense legal language that made my head spin. I picked up my reading glasses from the side table and tried to focus, but the words blurred together. "I don't understand all this legal jargon," I admitted. "That's okay, Mom. That's what I'm here for." Lisa leaned closer, her perfume something expensive and floral washing over me. "Basically, this just gives me the ability to pay your bills, access your accounts, and handle things while you're focused on getting better. It's completely standard for families dealing with serious illness. Millions of people do this. But won't I be able to handle my own finances after surgery? Of course, this is just a precaution. Think of it like insurance. You hope you never need it, but it's there if you do. The lawyer said it's especially important because you live alone. If something happens and you can't communicate, someone needs to be able to keep your lights on, pay your medical bills, handle your property taxes." That made sense. I lived alone. I had no other family besides Lisa and Matthew, and the surgery was risky. Dr. Anderson had been honest about that. There was a chance I might not wake up, or that I might be in intensive care for weeks. "Your father would have wanted you to be protected," Lisa added softly. "He always said family takes care of family." The mention of Robert undid me. My eyes filled with tears. "He did say that, didn't he?" "All the time." Lisa handed me a tissue. "So will you sign, please? I can't bear the thought of you going into surgery without these protections in place. I'd be worrying the whole time." I looked at the documents again. Power of attorney. It sounded so official, so serious. But Lisa was right. I needed someone who could help me if things went wrong. And who else did I have but my daughter? "Where do I sign?" Lisa's face lit up with relief. She pointed to several spots marked with yellow tabs. "Here, here, and here. I'll witness your signature and then we'll get it notarized at the bank." My hand trembled as I signed my name, Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, on each page. The pen felt heavy. Some part of me, some small voice in the back of my mind whispered that I should read every word, should have my own lawyer review this. But I pushed that voice down. This was my daughter. She loved me. She was trying to help. "Thank you, Mom." Lisa gathered the papers carefully and tucked them back into the folder. "This makes me feel so much better. Now you can focus entirely on getting well, and I'll handle all the boring administrative stuff." She hugged me tight, and I breathed in the scent of her shampoo, the same brand she'd used since high school. My baby girl, my only child. I love you, sweetheart. I love you too, Mom. After she left, I sat alone in the quiet house and tried to shake the feeling that I'd just made a terrible mistake. But that was ridiculous. Lisa was my daughter. She would never hurt me. Would she? The surgery was scheduled for a Friday morning at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Lisa and Matthew picked me up at 5 a.m., both of them wearing serious expressions. Matthew carried my overnight bag, and Lisa held my hand as we walked through the automatic doors into the bright, sterile hospital lobby. "You're going to be fine, Mrs. Mitchell," Matthew said. He was a tall man with sandy brown hair and a weak chin, always wearing suits that seemed just a little too expensive for someone whose business ventures never quite panned out. My mother had a similar procedure last year. She recovered beautifully. I didn't have the heart to tell him that pancreatic surgery was nothing like a hysterectomy, which is what his mother had undergone. Instead, I just nodded and let them guide me to the surgical wing. The pre-op area was a maze of curtained cubicles. A nurse with kind eyes and tired smile helped me change into a hospital gown and started my IV. Lisa stayed by my side, stroking my hair like she used to do when she was little, and I was tucking her into bed. "I'm scared," I admitted in a whisper. "I know, Mom, but Dr. Anderson is one of the best surgeons in Chicago. You're in good hands. If something happens to me, nothing is going to happen. But if it does," I insisted, "I want you to know that I'm proud of you. You've built such a successful career. You're smart and beautiful, and your father would be so proud." Lisa's eyes filled with tears. She leaned down and kissed my forehead. "You're not saying goodbye, Mom. This isn't goodbye. I'll be right here when you wake up." They wheeled me away at 7 a.m. The last thing I saw before the anesthesia took me was Lisa waving, tears streaming down her face. I woke up in stages. First there was pain, a deep burning ache in my abdomen that made me gasp. Then came the nausea rolling through me in waves. I tried to sit up, but gentle hands pushed me back down. "Easy, Mrs. Mitchell. You're in recovery. The surgery is over." A nurse, not the same one from before, was checking my vitals. The room spun around me and I closed my eyes against the vertigo. Did it go okay?" My voice came out as a croak. "Dr. Anderson will be in to talk to you soon. But yes, the surgery went very well. Better than expected, actually." Relief washed over me, stronger than the pain. I'd survived. I was going to be okay. "Lisa," I mumbled. "My daughter." "She's in the waiting room. We'll bring her back once you're more alert." I drifted in and out for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. When Dr. Anderson finally appeared, still in his scrubs, he was smiling. "Sarah, you gave us quite a scare during the procedure. Your blood pressure dropped at one point, but we got through it. And here's the good news. The tumor was smaller than we thought. We were able to remove it with clean margins. The lymph nodes looked clear." "What does that mean?" "It means your prognosis is excellent. With chemotherapy to make sure we got everything, I'd say your 5-year survival rate just jumped to 80%. I started crying, deep gasping sobs of relief and exhaustion and gratitude. I was going to live. I was going to see more sunrises, more Christmases. I was going to watch my grandson Tommy grow up. "Can I see Lisa?" I asked when I could finally speak again. "Of course. I'll send her right in." But when Lisa arrived, her face didn't show the joy I expected. She looked worried, distracted. She held my hand and said all the right things, but there was something off about her smile, something forced. "What's wrong, honey?" I asked. The pain medication was making me fuzzy, but I knew my daughter. "Nothing, Mom. I'm just tired. It's been a long day." "The doctor said the tumor was small. That's good news." "It's wonderful news." But her voice was flat. I squeezed her hand. "You can go home and rest. I'm going to be sleeping anyway. They've got me on so many drugs I probably won't even remember this conversation." "Are you sure?" "Positive. Go home to Matthew. I'll call you tomorrow." She kissed my cheek and left quickly, almost running from the room. I told myself she was just overwhelmed, just processing the stress of the day. But that small voice in the back of my mind whispered again, "Something is wrong." I was too tired to listen. I closed my eyes and slept. The hospital kept me for 5 days. I developed a minor infection that needed intravenous antibiotics, and the pain was worse than they'd expected. but slowly, day by day, I got stronger. I could sit up. I could walk to the bathroom with help. I could eat solid food without immediately vomiting it back up. Lisa visited every day, but the visits were short. She always had somewhere else to be, a client meeting a property showing an urgent call to take. Matthew came once, stayed for 10 minutes, and spent most of that time checking his phone. On the 5th day, a hospital social worker came to discuss my discharge plan. Mrs. Mitchell, Dr. Anderson says you're ready to go home tomorrow, but you're going to need help for the first few weeks. Do you have family who can stay with you? My daughter lives across town, but I'm sure she can... Actually, the social worker interrupted gently. I spoke with your daughter yesterday. She said she won't be able to provide full-time care due to her work schedule, so we need to make other arrangements. My stomach dropped. What kind of arrangements? There are some excellent rehabilitation facilities in the area, places where you can continue to recover with 24-hour nursing care. I have some brochures. I don't need a nursing home. I'll be fine at home. Mrs. Mitchell, you can't climb stairs yet. You can't lift anything heavier than 5 pounds. You need help with bathing and dressing. Unless you have someone who can provide that level of care. I'll hire someone, a private nurse. The social worker looked uncomfortable. That's certainly an option, but it's expensive. And there's the issue of your insurance coverage. Medicare will cover a stay at a skilled nursing facility, but private home care is mostly out of pocket. We went back and forth for 20 minutes. Finally, I agreed to look at the brochures. They all showed cheerful elderly people doing Tai Chi in sunny courtyards, but I knew what those places really were. Warehouses for the dying, where they kept you sedated and waiting for the end. That night I called Lisa. Honey, the social worker says I can't go home alone. Can you and Matthew stay with me for a few weeks? Just until I can manage the stairs. There was a long pause. Mom, we can't. Our apartment is tiny, just 1 bedroom, and Matthew has been dealing with some business issues. He's stressed out. We can't take on more right now. I'm your mother, Lisa. I had surgery. I have cancer. I know, Mom, and I'm sorry, but we found a really good solution. There's a place called Sunset Haven on the south side. They specialize in post-surgical care. It's very affordable, and they have openings. Sunset Haven, I knew that name. A friend of mine had spent her last 6 weeks there after a stroke. She'd called it a hellhole, understaffed, dirty, with residents left crying in their beds for hours. I'm not going there. Mom, be reasonable. You need professional care and we can't provide it. This is the best option. The best option is for my daughter to help me. I am helping you. Lisa's voice rose sharp and defensive. I've been at the hospital every day. I arranged all your medications. I talked to your insurance company. But I can't put my entire life on hold for months while you recover. Months. She made it sound like I was asking her to give up years. Fine, I said coldly. I'll figure something out myself. Don't be like that, Mom. I'm doing the best I can. I hung up without saying goodbye. 2 days later, I was discharged to my own home. I'd refused the nursing facility and the hospital couldn't force me to go. A nurse gave me a long list of warnings. Don't lift anything. Don't climb stairs. Call 911 if I experienced fever or severe pain, and then I was free to go. A taxi took me home. The driver helped me to the front door with my small bag of belongings. I paid him with cash and watched him drive away, then turned to face my house. The brownstone looked the same as always, solid, beautiful, welcoming. But as I climbed the front steps, each one sending spikes of pain through my abdomen, I realized how alone I truly was. Lisa wasn't coming. Matthew wasn't coming. I was 72 years old, recovering from major surgery, and I was completely on my own. I reached for my keys and inserted them into the lock. The key wouldn't turn. I tried again, thinking maybe the cold had frozen the mechanism. But no, the key slid in smoothly, but the cylinder wouldn't rotate. I stepped back, confused. I'd lived in this house for 30 years. I knew this lock. Then I noticed the smart lock keypad above the handle, the one I'd installed 3 years ago for convenience. I punched in my code, 2847, the house number. Access denied. A spike of panic shot through my chest. I tried again, slower this time. Access denied. This wasn't right. This was my house, my home. I pressed the doorbell. I could hear it chiming inside, deep and familiar. I waited. Nothing. I pressed it again, then started pounding on the door with my fist. Lisa, open the door. It's freezing out here. The curtain in the front window twitched. Someone was watching me. A moment later, I heard the deadbolt slide back. but the door only opened a crack stopped by the security chain. Lisa peered out through the gap. She was wearing a silk blouse, full makeup, her hair perfectly styled. Behind her I could hear music playing jazz, the kind Robert used to love. "Mom," she said. Her tone was flat, impatient. "What are you doing here?" I stared at my daughter through the narrow gap in the door. The cold wind bit at my neck and I was shivering uncontrollably, both from the temperature and the pain medication wearing off. "What am I doing here?" I repeated, my voice rising with disbelief. "I live here, Lisa. I just got out of the hospital. Let me in, I need to sit down." "You can't come in." She didn't move to undo the chain. In fact, she leaned her weight against the door as if to make absolutely sure I couldn't push my way past her. "What are you talking about, Lisa? I'm in pain. I'm cold. Open this door right now." "Mom, listen." Her voice took on that patient, condescending tone people use with small children or senile elderly people. "We talked about this. The house is too big for you. You can't manage the stairs. You need professional care." "I never agreed to leave my house. The house is sold, Mom." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually stumbled backward, catching myself on the porch railing. "Sold, you can't sell my house. It's my house." "Technically," Lisa said, and there was something cold in her smile now. "You signed the power of attorney, remember? You said I could handle your affairs while you focused on getting better. Well, this is me handling them. The house is too much for you. We're liquidating it. We accepted an offer this morning." My mind reeled. Liquidating. She was talking about my home. The home where I'd raised her, where I'd loved her father like it was just another asset on a balance sheet. "Let me in," I said, my voice dropping to something dangerous. "Now." "No. If I let you in, you'll just refuse to leave and make a scene. Matthew and I have plans tonight. A celebration dinner. We don't have time for your drama." Through the crack in the door, I saw movement. Matthew appeared in the hallway wearing a cashmere sweater and holding a glass of red wine. My red wine. The vintage Bordeaux I'd been saving for my 75th birthday. He saw me standing there shivering and gray-faced, and he didn't come to help. He just took a sip of my wine and walked back toward the living room where I could see the fire blazing in the fireplace. The fireplace I'd restored with my own hands, brick by brick. "You're stealing my house," I said. "We're managing your assets," Lisa corrected sharply. "Honestly, Mom, you should be grateful. We found a place for you, Sunset Haven. I paid for 3 months up front with your savings. It's affordable, and they specialize in people in your condition." My condition. She said it like I was already dead, already gone. "Please," I heard myself say, and I hated the begging in my voice. "Just let me use the bathroom. Then I'll go. I promise." Lisa looked at me. She looked at her mother, who had paid for her college education, who had walked her down the aisle at her wedding, who had bought her first car. She looked at me shivering on the porch, 2 weeks out of cancer surgery. "Wait here," she said. She closed the door. I thought she was undoing the chain. I thought maybe there was a shred of humanity left in her. I stood there wiping snow off my face, waiting for the click of the lock. But the door didn't open. Instead, I heard rustling. Then the door cracked open again. Just enough for Lisa to shove something through. A black plastic trash bag hit my chest and fell onto the snowy porch with a thud. "What is this?" I stared at the bag. "Your clothes, and that picture of Dad you keep on the nightstand. The rest goes to the estate sale tomorrow." She slapped a bright yellow sticky note onto the door right at my eye level. "Read it," she commanded. "Then get off my property before I call the police for trespassing." The door slammed. The deadbolt slid home. The smart lock beeped as she rearmed the security system. I was alone. The silence of the street was deafening. The only sound was the wind howling through the bare trees and the distant hiss of traffic on the expressway. I looked at the yellow note. In Lisa's rushed handwriting it said, "You're useless. The house is sold. Welcome to the trash heap." I should have cried. A normal mother would have cried. To be betrayed by your own flesh and blood, to be locked out of your own home while recovering from cancer surgery, it's enough to break anyone. But I didn't cry. The tears froze before they could form. Instead, something inside me clicked into place. It was the part of me that had survived the recession of 2008 when my construction company nearly went bankrupt. The part that had built a business from nothing but a toolbox and determination. The part that had raised a child alone after Robert died. I looked down at the black trash bag. My life, my dignity stuffed into plastic. I bent down and picked it up. My abdomen screamed in protest, the surgical incision pulling tight, but I forced myself to lift it. I wasn't going to die on this porch. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Then I saw it, Lisa's brand new Range Rover gleaming white in the driveway. The one I'd helped with the down payment on last Christmas. $20,000 because she said she needed a reliable car for showing properties to clients. I reached into my coat pocket. My fingers found what I was looking for, my black industrial marker. I'd carried one for 40 years on construction sites. Old habits die hard. I walked over to the Range Rover. My hand was steady for the first time all day. I peeled the yellow sticky note off the door, turned it over to the blank side, and pressed it against the driver's side window. I wrote 2 words, just 2, wrong move. I stuck the note to the glass where she'd see it the moment she came out. Then I threw the trash bag over my shoulder and walked down the driveway. The snow was getting deeper, covering my tracks as I went. I needed shelter. I needed a bathroom. I needed to think. But most of all, I needed a phone and a lawyer who was hungry for justice. Lisa thought she'd thrown out the trash. She had no idea she'd just lit the fuse on a stick of dynamite. I pulled my coat collar up and started walking toward the main road. The cold was brutal, but I hardly felt it. I was already planning my next move. And I knew one thing for certain: by the time I was done, they would wish they'd let me freeze on that porch. The neon sign of the Motel 6 buzzed with an irritating hum that matched the throbbing in my head. It was tucked just off Interstate 90, the kind of place where long-haul truckers stopped for a few hours of sleep and nobody asked questions. I'd walked for almost an hour through the slush to get here, each step sending fire through my healing incision. I pushed open the glass door. The lobby smelled like stale cigarettes and industrial cleaner. Behind a plexiglass partition sat a young man scrolling through his phone, barely glancing up as I approached. "I need a room for the night," I said, trying to sound authoritative despite my shivering. $60 plus tax, ID and credit card. I pulled out my wallet with trembling hands. Inside was my Visa Infinite Card, black metal, heavy and cold. A card with a limit high enough to buy a small car. I slid it under the partition. The clerk finally looked up, seeing the premium card and my disheveled appearance. He probably thought I'd stolen it. He swiped it through the machine. I waited for the familiar beep of approval. Instead, there was a harsh buzz. "Declined," he said, sliding it back. "That's impossible. Try it again." He sighed and swiped harder. Same result. "Declined. You got another card?" I pulled out my American Express Platinum, my emergency backup. "This one will work." He inserted the chip. We waited. The machine flashed a message that made my blood run cold. "Card reported lost or stolen," he read from the screen. "I gotta destroy this." He reached for scissors. "Wait, that's my card. Look at my ID." "Doesn't matter what your ID says. System says it's stolen." I watched helpless as he cut my platinum card in half. "Do you have cash or are you leaving?" I stumbled to the corner of the lobby, pulled out my phone, and dialed my bank's priority service number. Usually they picked up on the first ring for a client of my standing. Today, I was put on hold. Finally, a woman answered. "Priority Banking, this is Jennifer. How can I help you, Mrs. Mitchell?" "Jennifer, my cards are being declined. One was just destroyed. What's going on with my accounts?" "One moment, please." Keyboard clicking. A long pause. "Mrs. Mitchell, I see that a wire transfer was initiated this morning. The full balance of your checking and savings accounts, $450,000, was transferred to an account registered to Lisa Mitchell Porter. The notes indicate she provided your power of attorney documentation. The accounts are currently at 0. The room tilted. I grabbed the vending machine to keep from falling. "And there's a flag on the credit cards," Jennifer continued. "They were reported compromised and new ones were issued and sent to your home address." My home address. The house I couldn't enter. "Who authorized this?" I asked, though I already knew. "Lisa Mitchell Porter. She stated you were incapacitated due to medical reasons and that she needed to secure the funds for your care." Incapacitated. The word hung in the air like poison. "She took everything." "The balance is 0, Mrs. Mitchell. I'm very sorry." I hung up and stood there staring at my reflection in the glass of the vending machine. An old woman looked back, gray-faced, hollow-eyed, broken. I opened my wallet again, bypassed the empty credit card slots, and looked at the cash compartment. I counted the bills. $120. That was my net worth. I walked back to the counter and laid $60 on the scratched surface. "Room," I said. The clerk took the money and tossed me a plastic key card. 104, down the hall to the left. Check out at 11. No smoking. Room 104 was smaller than my walk-in closet had been. A double bed with a polyester spreaded desk with water stains and a TV from the 1990s. The heating unit under the window rattled but produced no warmth. I dropped the trash bag on the floor and sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress was lumpy and squeaked under my weight. For a long time, I just sat there in my coat, staring at the water-stained ceiling. $450,000. The money Robert and I had saved over 40 years. The money from selling the construction company. The money we'd put aside for retirement, for emergencies, for our future. Gone. In one morning with one wire transfer. And the house our house sold. Or being sold. Lisa had used the power of attorney to steal it all. I thought back to that day in Dr. Anderson's office when Lisa had cried so convincingly. Had those tears been real, or had she been crying because she thought the cancer might take too long? Had she seen my diagnosis not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity? My stomach churned. I ran to the bathroom and vomited into the toilet, my surgical incisions screaming with each heave. When I was empty, I leaned against the cold tile and let myself feel the full weight of what had happened. My daughter had robbed me. My only child had stolen everything I owned and thrown me away like garbage. But she'd made one critical mistake. She thought I was weak. She thought I was broken. She thought I was just a sick old woman who would quietly disappear into some state-run facility and eventually die. She didn't know that I'd built a construction empire in a male-dominated industry. She didn't know that I'd faced down union bosses, corrupt inspectors, and competitors who thought they could intimidate me. She'd forgotten who I was. Or maybe she'd never really known. I pulled myself up from the bathroom floor, washed my face in the sink, and looked at myself in the mirror. The old woman was still there, but something had changed in her eyes. They were no longer empty. They were calculating. I walked back to the bed and opened the trash bag. Inside were a few clothes, some toiletries, and thank God the old laptop I'd kept in my bedroom. Lisa must have thrown it in the bag without thinking, not realizing it was my connection to the outside world. I powered it on and waited for it to boot up. While I waited, I made a list in my head of everything I needed. 1. A lawyer. 2. Access to my hidden accounts. 3. Information on Lisa's financial situation. 4. A plan. The laptop finally came to life. I opened my browser and searched for Fighting Elder Financial Abuse Chicago. Pages of results appeared. I clicked through them, reading about power of attorney fraud, how adult children steal from elderly parents, what legal recourse victims have. Then I searched for one name specifically, Elena Rodriguez. Elena was the daughter of Miguel Rodriguez, my late husband Robert's best friend from the Army. Miguel had died of cancer 10 years ago, but not before Robert and I had anonymously paid for Elena's law school tuition. She was 34 now, a partner at a prestigious firm downtown, and according to her website, she specialized in elder law and estate disputes. I opened my email and started typing subject urgent legal matter. Sarah Mitchell. Dear Elena, this is Sarah Mitchell, your father's friend. I need your help. This isn't a social call. What I'm about to tell you will sound unbelievable, but I have evidence. My daughter has stolen everything I own using a power of attorney I signed while frightened and recovering from surgery. She's selling my house. She's drained my bank accounts, and she left me homeless 2 weeks after cancer surgery. I know it's late, and I know this is a lot to ask, but I need a lawyer who understands that sometimes the people who hurt us most are our own family. I need someone who will fight. Can we meet tomorrow, Sarah? I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I lay back on the lumpy mattress, still wearing my coat because the room was so cold, and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Tomorrow, I would start building my case, brick by brick, the same way I'd built my career. And Lisa would learn something Robert used to tell our workers on every job site. If you don't respect the foundation, the whole building will come down on your head. She'd built her scheme on lies and theft. That was a weak foundation, and I was about to bring the whole thing crashing down. My phone buzzed at 6:30 in the morning, pulling me from a fitful sleep. I'd spent the night alternating between chills and fever, my surgical incision throbbing with every breath. The motel room was still dark, the thin curtains doing little to block out the glow from the parking lot lights. The email notification glowed on my screen. Elena Rodriguez. RE urgent legal matter. I sat up too quickly, pain shooting through my abdomen, and opened it with shaking hands. Sarah, I'm horrified by what you've described. This is elder financial abuse, and it's both a civil and criminal matter. I can see you at my office this morning at 9 a.m. Come directly to Willis Tower, 42nd floor. Don't call ahead, just come. And Sarah, bring any documentation you have. Bank statements, the power of attorney, anything. We're going to fix this. Elena, I read it 3 times, tears blurring my vision. Someone believed me. Someone was going to help. I dragged myself to the shower, barely more than a trickle of lukewarm water, and did my best to make myself presentable. The clothes in the trash bag were wrinkled, but I found a navy blouse and gray slacks that didn't look too terrible. My hair was another matter. I hadn't been to a salon in 2 months, and the silver roots were showing through the dye job, but there was nothing I could do about that now. At 8:15, I counted my remaining cash, $60. Enough for a taxi to downtown and maybe a coffee if I was lucky. The cab driver who picked me up gave me a sympathetic look as I gingerly lowered myself into the back seat. You okay, ma'am? I've been better, I admitted. Willis Tower, please. As we drove through the gray Chicago morning, I watched the city I'd helped build slide past the windows. There, that office complex on LaSalle. I'd overseen the foundation work on that project back in 1998, and that high-rise on Wacker I'd consulted on the structural reinforcement after they found problems with the original plans. I'd built this city brick by brick, beam by beam, and now I couldn't even afford a decent hotel room. The irony wasn't lost on me. Willis Tower loomed above me, all black steel and glass, piercing the low clouds. I paid the taxi driver with most of my remaining cash and walked through the revolving doors into the massive lobby. Security stopped me, of course. I looked like a homeless person, which technically I was, but when I gave Elena's name and they called up, the guard's attitude changed immediately. 42nd floor, ma'am. Ms. Rodriguez is expecting you. The elevator ride felt like ascending to heaven. As the numbers climbed, I felt my breathing slow, my panic recede. I was taking action. I was fighting back. The doors opened onto a reception area that screamed expensive. Marble floors, modern art on the walls, a receptionist who looked like she stepped out of a fashion magazine. But before she could ask my business, a door burst open and Elena Rodriguez strode out. She was smaller than I remembered from her father's funeral 10 years ago, but what she lacked in height, she made up for in presence. Dark hair pulled into a severe bun-sharp suit, and eyes that missed nothing. She took one look at me, and her expression shifted from professional to something much softer. Sarah. She didn't ask questions, didn't make me explain in the lobby. She just took my arm gently as if she knew I was injured and guided me into her corner office. Sit. I'll get you some water. She pressed a button on her desk. Maria, can you bring coffee and some breakfast and hold my calls? Then she closed the door, pulled the blinds for privacy, and sat across from me. Not behind her desk like a lawyer interrogating a client, but in the chair next to mine, as equals. Tell me everything, she said. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told her about the diagnosis, the surgery, Lisa's suggestion about the power of attorney. I told her about being locked out in the cold, about the trash bag, about the wire transfer that emptied my accounts. Elena listened without interrupting, taking notes on a legal pad. Her expression grew darker with each revelation. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to her computer. Let me pull up the Cook County Recorder of Deeds database. If they're selling your house, there has to be a paper trail. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. I sipped the water she'd given me and tried not to vomit from nerves. Found it, Elena said, her voice going ice cold. Oh, that clever little... She stopped herself, took a breath. Sarah, did you know that Lisa filed a quit-claim deed 4 days ago? What's that? It's a document transferring property ownership. According to this, you signed over your house to Lisa Mitchell Porter for the sum of $10. The room spun. I never signed anything like that. I know you didn't. Elena turned the monitor so I could see. The document showed my name signed in what looked like my handwriting, but wasn't. It was close, but the signature lacked the distinctive loop on the S that I'd developed over decades. This is forgery, but more importantly, she pulled up another document. Sarah, do you still own that house? Personally, I mean. What do you mean? After Robert died, did you do any estate planning? Set up a trust? My heart jumped. Yes, I did. My lawyer, David Chen, He said I should put the house into a living trust to avoid probate, the Robert Mitchell Living Trust. I'm the trustee and Lisa is the beneficiary, but only after I die. Elena's face broke into a fierce smile. Then this quitclaim deed is worthless. Lisa can't transfer property you don't personally own. She transferred property from Sarah Mitchell the individual to herself. But Sarah Mitchell the individual doesn't own that house. The trust does. So the sale won't hold up. The title company will flag it when they do their search, assuming they do one properly. But even if the sale somehow goes through, the buyers won't get valid title. And Lisa, Elena leaned forward, her eyes bright with the thrill of the hunt. Lisa will have committed fraud, wire fraud, title fraud, elder financial abuse. If the property value is over $100,000, which yours definitely is, we're looking at a Class 1 felony. 4 to 15 years in prison. I should have felt triumph. Instead, I felt sick. That was my daughter we were talking about. The baby I'd rocked to sleep, the little girl I'd taught to ride a bike. Elena must have seen it on my face. Sarah, I know this is hard, but she did this to you. She left you homeless and penniless while you were recovering from cancer surgery. Sometimes the people we love hurt us the worst, and sometimes the only way to protect ourselves is to hold them accountable. I know, I whispered. I know. It's just, how did I raise someone who could do this? You didn't. She made her own choices. Elena squeezed my hand. Now we need to make ours. I can file an emergency injunction right now. We can stop the sale before it happens. No, Elena blinked. No, let them go through with it. Let Lisa stand in that closing room and sign those documents. Let her take that check. Because if we stop her now, it's just a civil dispute about power of attorney abuse. She can claim confusion, misunderstanding. But if she completes the sale, I met Elena's eyes. Then it's fraud. Criminal fraud, and I want her to face every consequence. Elena studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You're tougher than you look, Sarah Mitchell. I built high-rises in a man's world, Elena. I learned a long time ago that sometimes you have to be tough. Before we go after Lisa, Elena said, pulling out a fresh legal pad, we need to know what we're working with. What assets do you have that Lisa doesn't know about? I hesitated. It felt strange to talk about money when I had $60 to my name. But Elena was right. I needed to take inventory. There's a Roth IRA I opened in 1985, I said slowly. And an investment portfolio Robert and I started when we sold the construction company. I always kept it separate in my maiden name, Sarah Elizabeth Parker. I don't think Lisa knows about it. Can you access it? I pulled out my old laptop. If the motel Wi-Fi will reach this far. It took 3 tries, but finally I logged into my Fidelity account. The balance loaded. $627,000. Elena let out a low whistle. That's a substantial war chest. It was supposed to be for retirement. For emergencies. I laughed bitterly. I guess this qualifies. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Elena started making a list. First, we're going to find out everything about Lisa's financial situation. If she's this desperate to sell your house quickly, there's a reason. Second, we're going to contact the police and build a criminal case. Third, she paused. Third, we're going to make sure you have somewhere safe to stay. I can't afford... There's a residential hotel in Lincoln Park, corporate housing basically. It's discreet, safe, and we can pay month to month. Consider it an advance against the damages we're going to recover from Lisa. I started to protest, but Elena held up her hand. Sarah, you can't fight from a Motel 6 room. You need rest, you need to recover from surgery, and you need to be somewhere that Lisa can't find you if she decides to come looking. Let me help. Something in my chest loosened. I wasn't alone. I had an ally. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me yet. We have a lot of work to do. She picked up her phone. Maria, can you get Jake Morrison on the line? Tell him it's urgent. Jake Morrison turned out to be a private investigator, a former Chicago PD detective who now worked for Elena's firm on sensitive cases. He arrived at her office within an hour, a compact man with gray hair and watchful eyes that probably saw more than most people wanted him to. Elena briefed him on the situation while I sat quietly sipping the coffee someone had brought. The caffeine was helping, but I was exhausted down to my bones. So you want me to tail the husband? Jake asked, making notes. And dig into their finances, credit reports, property records, business filings, everything. If they're this desperate for cash, I want to know why. Give me 72 hours. You have 48. They're meeting with buyers on Friday morning. Jake grinned. A challenge. I like it. He turned to me. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm sorry this is happening to you, but I promise you we're going to find out what your daughter is hiding. After he left, Elena made a series of phone calls speaking in the rapid shorthand of lawyers who know each other well. I caught phrases like elder abuse case, and emergency protective order, and forensic accounting. Finally, she hung up and turned back to me. Okay, I've got a forensic accountant who owes me a favor. She's going to trace that wire transfer and see where the money went. I've also scheduled a meeting for tomorrow morning with Detective Rachel Murphy. She heads the Financial Crimes Unit at CPD. She'll want to hear your story directly. Tomorrow? I felt panic rising. But I need to go back to the house. I need documents, my medications. Absolutely not. Sarah, listen to me. Lisa has already shown she's willing to abandon you in a medical crisis. If you go back there, especially alone, we don't know what she'll do. For all we know, she could have you arrested for trespassing in your own home. But my blood pressure medication... We'll get you new prescriptions. I have a doctor I can call. But you cannot go back to that house. Not until we have a police escort. Understood? I wanted to argue. But she was right. I was in no condition to confront Lisa. Not physically, and maybe not emotionally either. Understood, I said. Elena got me checked into the residential hotel, a beautiful suite with a full kitchen, a comfortable bed, and most importantly, heat. She also had someone from her office pick up prescriptions for my blood pressure medication, pain medication, and antibiotics. Rest tonight, she ordered. Tomorrow we meet with the detective. Then we start building our case. But I couldn't rest. As soon as Elena left, I opened my laptop and started digging. I knew Lisa's career had been successful. She drove an expensive car, wore designer clothes, lived in a Gold Coast penthouse. But now I was wondering, was it all real, or was it all leverage? I started with social media. Lisa's Instagram was a carefully curated collection of luxury photos of fancy dinners, weekend trips, designer handbags. Each post had hundreds of likes. She looked successful. She looked happy. She looked like a liar. I moved to LinkedIn. Her company was called Porter Elite Properties. The website was slick and professional, featuring Lisa in expensive suits, standing in front of luxury condos. But when I dug deeper looking at actual listings and sales records, something didn't add up. According to the Chicago Association of Realtors database, Lisa had closed exactly 3 deals in the last 6 months. 3. For someone who projected such success, that was terrible. I opened a new search, Porter Elite Properties Complaints. The results made my blood run cold. Multiple complaints filed with the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, accusations of commingling client funds, an ongoing investigation into misrepresentation of properties, and most damning, a notice that her brokerage license was under review. My daughter wasn't just struggling, she was drowning. I kept digging, moving to Matthew now. Matthew Porter's Chicago business. He claimed to be an investor, a consultant and entrepreneur, but I couldn't find any actual business. No LLC filings, no corporate registrations, nothing. It was all smoke and mirrors. Then I found it. Buried in the Chicago Tribune's archives, a small article from 8 months ago. Local businessman loses $200K in cryptocurrency crash. The article didn't name Matthew directly, but it described a group of investors who'd put money into a cryptocurrency trading scheme that collapsed overnight. One of the investors interviewed said, "I lost my life savings. My wife doesn't even know yet. I don't know how I'm going to tell her." My hands shook as I kept searching. Cryptocurrency, gambling, Matthew. Then I found his Twitter account, which he'd apparently forgotten to make private. And there in his posts from 9 months ago were photos from inside casinos, poker tables, blackjack, roulette. Just won $5K. Lady Luck is with me tonight. Her Vegas had high roller. Down $3K, but the night is young. Never give up. Sometimes you gotta risk it to get the biscuit man and all in. And then 3 months ago, the posts stopped. Just stopped. I sat back, my mind racing. Matthew had a gambling problem. He'd lost everything in crypto and casinos. And now Lisa, whose career was failing, was married to a man deep in debt. That's why they needed my house. That's why they needed my money. They were desperate. My phone rang, startling me. It was Elena. "Sarah, Jake just sent over his preliminary report. You need to see this." "I've been doing some research myself," I said. "I think Matthew has a gambling problem. It's worse than that. Elena's voice was grim. Can I come over? This isn't something I want to discuss on the phone. 20 minutes later, she was at my door with a thick manila folder. Jake works fast, she said, spreading documents across my kitchen table. And what he found is concerning. She pulled out a photograph. It showed Matthew outside a warehouse on the south side, talking to a man I didn't recognize, tall, heavily built, with a scar running down the left side of his face. That's Viktor Volkov, Elena said, also known as the Wolf. He runs a loan sharking operation out of the west side. Former Russian mafia enforcer. 3 suspected murders, but nothing ever proven. He lends money to gamblers and business owners who can't get legitimate loans. My stomach dropped. How much does Matthew owe him? Elena pulled out another document. It was a promissory note handwritten on plain paper, but the terms were terrifyingly clear. Matthew Porter acknowledges a debt of $500,000 to Viktor Volkov DBA Apex Capital Recovery LLC. Interest rate 15% per week, compounding. If payment is not received in full by 5:00 p.m. Friday, March 15th, borrower understands that alternative collection methods will be employed. Alternative collection methods, I repeated. That's code for violence. That's code for murder, Elena corrected. Sarah, your house sale. It's not about greed, it's about survival. If they don't get Viktor his money by Friday, Matthew is a dead man. And Lisa knows it. I sat down heavily. This changed things. I thought Lisa was simply greedy, simply selfish. But if she was trying to save Matthew's life... Don't, Elena said sharply, reading my face. Don't make excuses for her. Yes, she's in a terrible situation. But she chose to solve it by robbing you instead of coming to you for help. She chose to throw her mother onto the street instead of being honest about her problems. Don't let sympathy cloud your judgment. I'm not, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Elena leaned forward. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to really think about your answer. Do you want to stop this? Do you want to send your daughter to prison? I looked at the photograph of Viktor Volkov, then at the promissory note, then at the quitclaim deed with my forged signature. Lisa had choices. She could have come to me and asked for help. She could have been honest about Matthew's debt. We could have figured something out together. Instead, she'd chosen to betray me in the cruelest way possible. Yes, I said firmly. I want to stop this, because if I don't, she'll do it to someone else, and next time she might succeed. Elena nodded. Good, because I have an idea, but it's risky and it requires you to be willing to take a big financial hit up front. What kind of idea? She pulled out a calculator and started running numbers. What if we bought Matthew's debt? I stared at her. Viktor is a businessman. A brutal one, but a businessman. He'd rather have cash in hand than risk murdering someone and attracting police attention. Jake says he can arrange a meeting. We offer Viktor, say, 70 cents on the dollar. That's $350,000. He gets guaranteed money, we get the promissory note. And then Matthew owes me instead of Viktor. Exactly. And here's the beautiful part. Unlike Viktor, we can enforce the debt through legal means. Courts wage garnishment, asset seizure. We make Matthew's life hell legally instead of physically. I thought about my $6,000 to $27,000 nest egg. If I paid $350,000 to Viktor, I'd have $277,000 left. Not enough to retire comfortably, but enough to rebuild. And Lisa's office, I asked. You said she's behind on rent. Elena grinned. It wasn't a nice smile. She owes 6 months' rent, $18,000, to a landlord named Frank Russo. I already called him. He's an old friend of your late husband's, actually. He's willing to sell us the lease assignment and the debt for $20,000. So for $370,000, we'd own Matthew's life and Lisa's career. And they'd have no idea until it's too late. Elena's eyes gleamed. Sarah, by the time you walk into that closing meeting on Friday, you won't be a victim anymore. You'll own them completely. The next 48 hours were a blur of meetings, paperwork, and strategy sessions. Wednesday morning, I met with Detective Rachel Murphy at the CPD Financial Crimes Unit. She was a no-nonsense woman in her mid-40s with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. Mrs. Mitchell, I've reviewed the preliminary evidence Ms. Rodriguez sent over. This is one of the clearest cases of elder financial abuse I've seen in years. So you'll help me. We'll build a criminal case, but... She held up a hand. I understand you want to let the house sale proceed so we have a stronger case. I'm not sure I agree with that strategy. If they complete the fraud, there's a chance they could flee with the money. They won't flee, I said. Not until they pay off Viktor Volkov. And once they do that, I looked at Elena. They won't have anything left to flee with. Detective Murphy raised an eyebrow. You have a plan? We have a plan, Elena confirmed. But we need to move fast. Can you have officers ready at the closing location Friday morning? Give me the address and time. We'll be there. Wednesday afternoon, Jake Morrison arranged a meeting with Viktor Volkov at a restaurant in Pilsen. Elena insisted on coming with me, and Jake positioned himself at a nearby table just in case. Viktor was even more intimidating in person. He sat at a corner booth drinking black coffee, and his cold eyes studied me like I was a cut of meat. Mrs. Mitchell, he said in a thick Russian accent, Jake tells me you want to buy debt from me. Why? That's my business. It becomes my business when someone wants to buy debt of man who owes me $500,000. He leaned forward. Are you police FBI? Because if you are, this meeting is over. I'm a 72-year-old woman recovering from cancer surgery. Do I look like FBI? That got a bark of laughter. No, you look like grandmother. But Jake says you used to build buildings. Says you are a tough businesswoman. So I ask again, why do you want Matthew Porter's debt? I decided honesty or a version of it was the best approach. Matthew is married to my daughter. They've gotten themselves into trouble and I'm cleaning up their mess. That's what mothers do. Viktor drummed his fingers on the table. I could just collect from Matthew. I am very good at collecting. And then you'd have a murder investigation, FBI, police media attention. Bad for business. Or I could accept your offer. $350,000 for $500,000 debt. Guaranteed money, no risk. His eyes narrowed. But why would you pay their debt just to let them go free? I'm not letting them go free. I'm taking over their debt so I can make them pay in my own way. Viktor studied me for a long moment, then smiled. It was not a pleasant sight. You are more dangerous than you look, babushka. I like this. We have deal. Thursday, Elena and I met with Frank Russo, the landlord of Lisa's office building. He was a bear of a man with a thick Chicago accent and genuine sympathy in his eyes. Jerry, you're Robert, he was good man, Frank said. He helped me when I was starting out, so I help his widow now. The lease and debt, it's yours for $20,000. And Sarah, I'm sorry your daughter did this to you. Thank you, Frank. You want my advice? Sometimes you gotta let people hit rock bottom before they learn. My son, he had drug problem. I bailed him out 4 or 5 times. Finally, I said no more. He went to jail. Best thing that ever happened to him. Now he's clean, got good job, good family. Sometimes love means letting them face consequences. I thought about that as Elena processed the paperwork. Was I showing love by stopping Lisa, or was I showing revenge? Maybe it was both. By Thursday night, the pieces were in place. I owned Matthew's $500,000 debt to Viktor Volkov. I owned Lisa's office lease and $18,000 in back rent. Detective Murphy had officers ready for Friday morning. Elena had compiled a complete case file forged, quitclaim deed unauthorized wire transfer power of attorney abuse, evidence of fraud. How do you feel? Elena asked as we reviewed everything one last time in my hotel suite. Scared, I admitted. That's still my daughter. I raised her. I changed her diapers and taught her to read and walked her down the aisle. And tomorrow I'm going to watch her get arrested. You're not doing this to her, Sarah. She did this to herself. You're just making sure justice is served. It still hurts. I know. Elena squeezed my hand. But think about what would have happened if you'd done nothing. She'd have stolen your house, stolen your money, and left you to die in some state facility. And then she'd have done it to someone else. Maybe Matthew's parents. Maybe they'd have gone after your grandson Tommy's college fund. People who do this once do it again. She was right. I knew she was right, but it still felt like my heart was breaking. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Lisa as a little girl, how she used to climb into my lap when I was reviewing blueprints, asking me to explain what all the lines meant. How proud she'd been when I took her to see a building I'd worked on. My mommy built that, she'd told everyone. When had it changed? When had I stopped being someone she was proud of and started being someone she could use? I got out of bed and made myself chamomile tea. The hotel suite was quiet, looking out over Lincoln Park. From this height, I could see the lights of the city, could trace the outlines of buildings I knew intimately. That office tower on the left, I'd done the steelwork in 1992. That residential building straight ahead, I'd fought the city for 3 years to get the permits approved. That commercial space 2 blocks north, I'd salvaged the project after the original contractor went bankrupt. I'd built this city. Not alone, of course. There had been thousands of workers, dozens of engineers, countless partners. But I'd been part of it. I'd left my mark. What mark was Lisa leaving lies and fraud and forged documents? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mom, please call me. I know you're angry, but we need to talk. The closing is tomorrow at 9 a.m. You need to be there to sign. Please don't make this difficult. Lisa." I stared at the message. The sheer audacity of it took my breath away. She thought I'd just show up and sign away my house. She thought I was that broken, that defeated. I typed a response. "I'll be there." Let her think she'd won. Let her believe I was giving up. Tomorrow morning, she'd learn what a mistake that was. Another text came through, this time from a number I recognized. Tommy, my grandson. "Grandma, where are you? Mom says you're sick and staying at a hospital, but she won't tell me which one. I made you a card at school. When can I see you?" Tears filled my eyes. Tommy was 7 years old, all gap-toothed smiles and endless energy. He loved dinosaurs and SpongeBob and asking me about the old days when I built buildings. He didn't understand what was happening. He just knew his grandmother had disappeared. I wanted to respond to tell him I was okay, to promise I'd see him soon. But if I did, Lisa would know I was communicating with him. She'd cut off even that small connection. Instead, I saved the message. Someday when Tommy was older, I'd show it to him. I'd show him all of it, the messages, the legal documents, the whole terrible story. And I'd let him decide what kind of people his parents were. For now, I just whispered into the darkness, "I love you, Tommy. Grandma's going to be okay, and someday we'll be together again." I must have fallen asleep eventually, because the next thing I knew, sunlight was streaming through the windows and my phone was ringing. "Elena, it's Friday morning. You ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." "The closing is at Sterling and Boyd Law Offices, 9 a.m. Detective Murphy and her partner will be there by 8:30, waiting in an adjacent conference room. Jake will be in the lobby. I'll be with you the whole time. All you have to do is walk in and watch it unfold." "What should I wear?" There was a pause, then Elena said, "Wear your power suit, Sarah. The one you used to wear to board meetings. Show them the woman who built this city. Show them who they tried to destroy." I went to the closet and found the Armani suit that Elena had someone retrieve from a storage unit I'd rented years ago. It was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, with a silk blouse underneath. I'd bought it 15 years ago for a major presentation to City Council. Robert had whistled when he saw me in it. "That's my CEO wife," he'd said with pride. I put it on now, surprised that it still fit. A little loose, maybe I'd lost weight since the surgery. But it still looked good. I did my makeup carefully. Not heavy, but enough to hide the worst of the exhaustion and stress. I pulled my silver hair back into a low bun, the style I'd always worn when I needed to be taken seriously. Finally, I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back was not a victim, not a helpless old lady. She was Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, who'd built half of Chicago. She was a fighter. "Let's go to work," I told my reflection. Sterling and Boyd Law Offices occupied the entire 42nd floor of a glass tower overlooking the river. Elena and I arrived at 8:45. Detective Murphy and Detective Hayes were already there, positioned in a conference room with a view of the main hallway. "We can see everyone who comes and goes," Murphy explained. "As soon as you give us the signal, or if you feel unsafe at any point, we move in." "What's the signal?" I asked. Elena handed me a small device that looked like a car key fob. "Press this button. It'll alert them silently." My hands were shaking as I took it. This was really happening. "Sarah," Elena put her hands on my shoulders, "you can still back out. We can call this off right now, file criminal charges, and handle this through the system. You don't have to confront her." "Yes, I do." My voice was steady. "She needs to see my face. She needs to know that I'm not broken, that I'm not the helpless old woman she left freezing on the porch." "Okay." Elena picked up her briefcase. "Then let's go make this right." We walked down the plush hallway to conference room B. Through the glass wall, I could see them already inside. Dr. James Abbott and his wife Emma sat on one side of the massive table. Emma's hand rested on her pregnant belly, her face glowing with excitement. On the table in front of them sat a cashier's check for $750,000. On the other side sat Lisa and Matthew. Lisa wore a black Chanel dress that I knew cost at least $3,000. Her hair was styled in perfect waves. She looked successful, polished, confident. Matthew wore a navy blue suit, and on his wrist I had to look twice to be sure it was a Rolex Daytona. The watch alone was worth $40,000. Bought with my money, no doubt. They were laughing at something the lawyer said. Celebrating. Already spending money they didn't have yet. I checked my watch. 9:03. "Ready?" Elena asked. I took a deep breath. "Let's do this." She pushed open this conference room door. "This is it. This is the moment everything comes together. Comment your city below and let me know. Do you think Lisa deserves what's coming? Let's finish this." The conference room door felt heavier than it should have as I pushed it open. Every head turned toward the sound. For a split second, the world seemed to freeze. Dr. Abbott and his wife looked up with polite curiosity, expecting the elderly seller they'd been told about. The lawyer, Mr. Henderson, according to his nameplate, glanced at his watch with mild irritation at the interruption. Matthew's eyes went wide, his face draining of color like someone had pulled a plug. And Lisa, my daughter's mouth literally fell open. The coffee cup in her hand tilted, spilling dark liquid across the polished table. She didn't even notice. "Mom?" The word came out as barely a whisper. I didn't answer her. I didn't even look at her. Instead, I walked past her chair so close my suit jacket brushed her shoulder and headed straight for the head of the table where Mr. Henderson sat, surrounded by his paperwork. "Excuse me," I said, my voice carrying the authority of 40 years in boardrooms. "You're in my seat." Henderson scrambled up, clutching his documents to his chest. "Oh yes, Mrs. Mitchell, of course. We were waiting for you to sign the final—" "I'm aware of what you were waiting for." I sat down, removed my leather gloves slowly, and placed them on the table. Then I unbuttoned my suit jacket and leaned back in the chair like I owned it. Because I did. I owned this moment completely. Elena took the seat beside me, setting her leather briefcase on the table with a deliberate thump. "Mom," Lisa found her voice, though it shook. What are you doing here? Why are you dressed like that?" I finally turned to look at my daughter. Really look at her. She was pale beneath her expensive makeup. Her hands were trembling. "Good." "What am I doing here?" I repeated her question softly. "I was invited, wasn't I?" "You texted me last night. You told me to be here at 9. So here I am." "But I look like what Lisa, like myself. Like the woman who built half this city." I let the words hang in the air. "Or did you expect me to show up looking defeated, broken like the pathetic old woman you left freezing on a porch 2 weeks ago?" Dr. Abbott's wife, Emma, made a small sound of shock. Her husband's hand moved protectively to hers. "Mrs. Mitchell," Dr. Abbott said carefully, "I'm sorry, but I'm confused. Are you the seller?" "That's a complicated question, Dr. Abbott." I turned to him with a genuine smile. He and his wife were innocent in all this. "And I'm very sorry that you've been caught up in this mess. You seem like good people, but I need to tell you something important. This house is not for sale." "Not for sale?" Emma's eyes widened. "But we have a contract. We have—" She gestured at the cashier's check on the table. "I understand, and you've been deceived. By my daughter." I looked at Lisa, now held her gaze. "Tell them, Lisa. Tell these nice people what you did." Lisa's jaw clenched. "Mom, stop it. You're confused. You're on a lot of medications and you're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in months." I spoke over her, still addressing the Abbotts. 2 weeks ago, while I was recovering from pancreatic cancer surgery, my daughter used a power of attorney I'd signed to drain my bank accounts, lock me out of my house, and forge documents to transfer my property to herself. "That's not—" Lisa started. She left me standing in sub-zero temperatures with nothing but a trash bag of clothes. She stole $450,000 from my accounts. And then she tried to sell my house to you so she could pay off her husband's gambling debts. Matthew made a strangled noise. His hand shot to his Rolex, covering it instinctively. Dr. Abbott stood up his chair, scraping harshly against the floor. His face had gone red. "Is this true?" "No." Lisa was on her feet now, too. "She's lying. She's sick. She's confused. She signed everything willingly." "Sit down, Ms. Porter." Elena's voice cut through the room like a knife. "And I'd suggest you stop talking before you make this worse." "Who the hell are you?" Matthew demanded, finding his voice finally. Elena Rodriguez, attorney at law. I represent Mrs. Mitchell, and I have some documents here that everyone needs to see. She opened her briefcase and began pulling out file folders. Let's start with the basics, shall we? She slid a document across the table to Mr. Henderson. This is a certified copy of the deed for 2847 Dearborn Street. As you can see, the property was transferred into the Robert Mitchell Living Trust on March 15, 2020. The sole trustee is Sarah Mitchell. The beneficiary is Lisa Mitchell Porter, but only upon Sarah Mitchell's death. Henderson's face went from confused to horrified as he read. Now, Elena continued, sliding another document forward. This is the quitclaim deed that Ms. Porter filed with Cook County last week. It purports to transfer the property from Sarah Mitchell to Lisa Mitchell Porter. But as you can see, Mr. Henderson, there's a problem. Sarah Mitchell doesn't own the property, Henderson whispered, his legal mind catching up. The trust does. Exactly, which means this quitclaim deed is void, worthless. Ms. Porter cannot transfer property she has no legal right to transfer. Elena's voice was crisp, professional, devastating. And since you failed to perform a proper title search which would have revealed the trust's existence in about 30 seconds, you facilitated an attempted fraud. Henderson looked like he might be sick. Dr. Abbott grabbed the cashier's check from the table, holding it protectively. We're leaving. Emma, get your coat. Dr. Abbott, Mrs. Abbott. I stood, gentling my voice. I'm truly sorry. You're the victims here, too. I hope you find a beautiful home for your family. You deserve better than to be caught up in this. Emma had tears in her eyes. I can't believe... What kind of person does this to their own mother? She didn't wait for an answer. They gathered their things and hurried out, Dr. Abbott's arm around his wife's shoulders. The door clicked shut behind them. Now it was just us. Me, Elena, Lisa, Matthew, and the lawyer who was frantically packing up his things. I'm done here, Henderson announced. I want no part of this. Ms. Porter, you'll be hearing from my malpractice insurance company. Mrs. Mitchell, I apologize for my role in this. He practically ran from the room. Silence fell over the conference room. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see Chicago spread out below us, the city I'd helped build, the city where I'd raised my daughter, the city where she'd decided to destroy me. Mom. Lisa's voice was small now, the bravado gone. Please, let me explain. Explain? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Explain how you stole from me. Explain how you left me homeless. Please, Lisa, I'd love to hear your explanation. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Everything it all fell apart so fast. The business, the money, Don't, Matthew cut her off sharply. Don't say another word, Lisa. Oh, I think she should keep talking, Elena said pleasantly. But first let me show you something. She pulled out her phone and connected it to the conference room's screen system. Mrs. Mitchell, do you remember that night you went back to the house when you heard Lisa and Matthew discussing their plans? My heart jumped. Yes. Did you record any of it? I tried to. On my phone. But I don't know if... You did, Elena smiled. And the audio is very clear. May I play it? I nodded, unable to speak. The conference room's speakers crackled to life. And then I heard them. My daughter's voice, Matthew's voice echoing in the empty room. Matthew, are you sure about the signature, Maddie? If they run a verification. Lisa, relax, Brandon. The old man is senile. Wait, Brandon. Who was Brandon? I looked at Elena, confused. She shook her head slightly. Keep listening. Lisa's voice continued. He could barely hold the pen. I told the agent it was Parkinson's. They won't look too hard. Matthew. But what if he talks? What if he figures out Lisa? He won't. And even if he does, by the time he realizes what happened, we'll be over the Atlantic. Elena stopped the recording. This isn't your recording, Sarah. This is from the original story your situation was based on. But you did make your own recording that night, didn't you? She pulled out another device and pressed play. This time it was Lisa and Matthew's actual voices, clear as day. Matthew, tomorrow, baby. Tomorrow we're rich. Lisa, I still don't understand why Mom won't call me back. Matthew, she's angry. Whatever, she'll be fine. Sunset Haven isn't that bad. You paid for 3 months up front. Lisa, but after 3 months? Matthew, cold, dismissive. After 3 months, we'll be in Paris. Let the state deal with her. Lisa's face crumbled. No, I didn't mean that's not you're taking it out of context. Context? My voice came out like steel. What context makes it acceptable to abandon your mother in a state facility while you run off to Paris? We were scared. Lisa was sobbing now. Victor was going to kill Matthew. We had no choice. You had choices, Lisa. You could have come to me and asked for help. You could have been honest. Instead, you chose to rob me. Elena pulled out more documents. Speaking of Viktor Volkov, the Russian loan shark who lent your husband $500,000. She slid papers across to Matthew. Good news, Mr. Porter. You don't owe Victor anymore. Matthew's head snapped up. What about? Mrs. Mitchell bought your debt yesterday for $350,000 cash. Victor was quite happy to take guaranteed money instead of risking a murder charge. Elena smiled. So you don't owe Victor. You owe your mother-in-law. $500,000 plus 12% annual interest payment due immediately. Matthew made a choking sound. And Ms. Porter. Elena turned to Lisa. Your office space, the one at Sullivan Tower where you're 6 months behind on rent, Mrs. Mitchell bought that lease too. She owns the building now. Well, technically the trust does. Either way, she shrugged. You owe her $18,000, and she changed the locks this morning. All your files, computers, client information locked inside. You can have them back when you pay what you owe. Lisa swayed on her feet. You can't do this. I already did. I stood up facing my daughter across the table. Did you really think I was just a helpless old woman? Did you think I'd built a construction empire by being weak? I taught you better than this, Lisa. I was trying to save his life. Lisa pointed at Matthew, her voice breaking. He was going to die. Victor was going to kill him. So you decided to kill me instead, slowly by abandoning me without my medications, without shelter, without money. I didn't think— No, you didn't think. You didn't think about anything except yourselves. I picked up my gloves, pulled them on slowly. And now you're going to face the consequences. I walked to the door and opened it. Detective Murphy and Detective Hayes stepped in, badges displayed. Lisa's knees buckled. Matthew caught her, but he didn't look much better. Lisa Mitchell Porter, Matthew Porter. Detective Murphy's voice was formal, official. You're both under arrest for wire fraud, elder financial abuse forgery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You have the right to remain silent. The sound of handcuffs clicking shut is something you never forget. It's final, irreversible, the sound of consequences coming due. Lisa looked at me as the detective secured the cuffs, her eyes pleading. Mom, please don't do this. I'm your daughter. I held her gaze. My daughter died 2 weeks ago. She died when she left me freezing on a porch. You're just someone who stole her face. No, Lisa struggled against the detective's grip. No, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Please, I'll fix this. I'll make it right. You're out of chances, Lisa. Matthew didn't fight, didn't cry. He just stared at the floor as they read him his rights already defeated. The Rolex glinted on his wrist, paid for with my money. That watch, I said to Detective Hayes. It was purchased with stolen funds. I'd like it seized as evidence. Mom, no, please. But it was too late. The detective was already removing it from Matthew's wrist. They were let out in handcuffs. Lisa cried the whole way. Matthew stayed silent. The door closed behind them. I stood there in the empty conference room looking at the scattered papers, the spilled coffee, the chair where my daughter had sat thinking she'd won. Are you okay? Elena asked softly. I don't know. I sat down heavily. I just sent my daughter to jail. You didn't send her anywhere. She sent herself. You just made sure she arrived. It doesn't feel like victory. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to feel like justice. And sometimes justice hurts. I looked out the window at Chicago, at the buildings and streets and lives continuing on below. Somewhere down there, Tommy was at school, probably wondering why Grandma hadn't called. Somewhere people were living normal lives, unaware that a family was being torn apart 42 floors above them. What happens now? I asked. Now we go to court. The DA has a strong case. The evidence is overwhelming. Lisa will probably be offered a plea deal if she testifies against Matthew and provides information about any other fraud she's committed. Matthew is looking at 5 to 7 years federal time, possibly more, depending on what else they find. And Lisa, with a good lawyer and if she cooperates, maybe 2 years suspended sentence after 6 months probation community service. She'll lose her real estate license permanently. She'll have a felony record, but she won't spend years in prison. I nodded slowly. And my house is still yours, still in the trust, completely safe. I'll have the locks changed again today. You can go home, Sarah. Home. The word should have brought comfort. Instead, it just felt empty. 3 months later, I stood in the main room of what used to be an abandoned warehouse in West Loop. Now it was bright and clean, filled with workbenches, tools, and young people learning trades that would support them for life. Mrs. Mitchell. A young woman approached me wearing safety goggles and carrying a welding torch. Can you check my bead? I think I finally got it right. I examined her work, a clean, even weld on a piece of steel. That's perfect, Jasmine. You're a natural. She beamed. Really? Because last week you said I was melting through the metal like butter. Last week you were. This week you're a welder. That's called learning. The Patricia Mitchell Memorial Trade School had been open for 2 months now. We offered free training in electrical work, plumbing, welding, carpentry, and HVAC repair. 25 students in the first class, all of them from low-income neighborhoods, all of them hungry to learn a skill that couldn't be outsourced or automated. I'd funded it with the money recovered from Lisa and Matthew, the sale of their possessions, the garnishment of Matthew's parents' loan to him, the seizure of assets purchased with my stolen funds. It came to just over $80,000. I added $200,000 from my own accounts. It wasn't enough to make me whole, but it was enough to make a difference. Mrs. Mitchell, another student, Kevin, who wanted to be an electrician, came running over. The circuit board is working. I wired the whole thing myself, and nothing caught fire. That's the goal, Kevin. Not catching fire is always good in electrical work. He laughed, so proud of himself, and went back to his station. Elena walked in, picking her way carefully around the equipment. I still can't believe you turned a fraud case into a trade school. Had to do something with the money. Couldn't spend it on myself, it felt dirty. How very you. Elena handed me a folder. The civil case settled. Lisa's insurance company is paying the full amount for the forged documents, $300,000. Plus, Frank Russo agreed to donate the building space for the trade school rent-free for 5 years as a thank you for helping him with some legal issues. I opened the folder, staring at the settlement check. $300,000, combined with what I'd already recovered that put me close to even. My retirement accounts were rebuilt. My house was mine again. I was going to be okay. Thank you, Elena, for everything. You did the hard part, Sarah. I just filed paperwork. You did more than that. You believed me when I showed up looking like a homeless person with a crazy story. It wasn't crazy. It was real. And it happens more than people think. Elena's expression grew serious. Sarah, I want to ask you something. Would you be willing to speak to groups about what happened to you? Senior centers, legal aid organizations, advocacy groups? Tell your story to help other people recognize the warning signs. The thought of sharing this publicly made my stomach clench. But I thought about all the other elderly people who might be going through what I went through, who might not have hidden accounts or a lawyer, daughter of a friend to help them. Yes, I said. I'll speak. 6 months after the arrests, a letter arrived at the trade school. It was forwarded from my home address, which Lisa didn't have anymore since I'd moved, but apparently she'd found the school through news articles about its founding. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Dear Mom, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I don't deserve your attention after what I did. But I'm writing anyway because my therapist says I need to take accountability even if you never respond. I've had 6 months to think about what I did to you. 6 months of community service cleaning toilets and picking up trash, wearing an ankle monitor, living in a halfway house with women who've made terrible choices. Women like me. Matthew is in federal prison. I filed for divorce. He has 3 years left on his sentence. I don't know if I'll be there when he gets out. Probably not. I've learned a lot about who he really was, about how he manipulated me. But that's not an excuse. I made my own choices. I chose to take your money. I chose to forge your signature. I chose to leave you on that porch. Those were my choices, and I'm living with them now. I lost my real estate license. I'll never get it back. I lost my friends. Turns out they weren't really friends when you can't afford bottle service anymore. I lost my apartment, my car, everything. But worst of all, I lost you. And I lost myself. Because the person who could do what I did to you, that's not who I thought I was. That's not who you raised me to be. I'm going to community college now, taking accounting classes. learning to do things honestly, learning to build a life on truth instead of lies. It's harder, but it's real. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to write back. I just wanted you to know that I see what I did. I understand it. And I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I heard about the trade school. Of course you did something like that. Of course you took the worst thing that happened to you and turned it into something that helps people. That's who you are. That's who you always were. I wish I'd been more like you. Maybe I still can be someday. I love you, Mom, even though I have no right to say it. Lisa, I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. Elena found me sitting there staring at the closed drawer. Was that from Lisa? Yes. What did it say? That she's sorry, that she's changing, that she's learning. Do you believe her? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know. Maybe. People can change, but it takes more than 6 months and a letter. Are you going to write back? Not yet. Maybe someday. Maybe when enough time has passed that I can look at her without seeing myself standing on that porch in the snow. I turned to Elena. Is that wrong to not forgive her immediately? Wrong, no. Healthy, absolutely. Sarah, you need time to heal from what she did to you. And she needs time to prove that her changes are real, not just words on paper. Forgiveness isn't a light switch. It's a process. What if she never proves it? Then you've lost a daughter who was already lost, but you've gained peace, purpose, and a chance to help dozens of young people build better lives. Elena gestured at the workshop beyond the office. That's not nothing. A year after everything fell apart, I was at the trade school working with a student on a wiring problem when someone cleared their throat behind me. I turned around. Tommy stood there. My grandson. He was 8 now, taller with a gap where his front teeth used to be, and a backpack covered in dinosaur patches. Grandma? His voice was uncertain. I dropped the wire cutters and opened my arms. Tommy! He ran to me, and I caught him in a hug that made my heart feel like it might explode. He smelled like soap and grape juice and childhood. I missed you so much, I whispered into his hair. So much. I missed you too. Mom wouldn't tell me where you were. She said you were sick. Are you sick? Not anymore, sweetheart. I'm all better. Good. He pulled back to look at me seriously. Because I made you 17 cards, and Mom wouldn't let me send them, and I saved them all and I brought them. He dug into his backpack and pulled out a stack of construction paper cards, each one decorated with crayons and stickers, and his careful printing. To Grandma, I love you. From Tommy. Dear Grandma, I hope you feel better. Here is a dinosaur. Grandma, Dad went away, but Mom says he will come back. I drew you a house. I looked up, searching for whoever had brought him. And there, standing in the doorway of the workshop, was Lisa. She looked different. No designer clothes, just jeans and a simple sweater. No expensive makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a plain ponytail. She looked younger somehow, or maybe just more real. I'm sorry for just showing up, Lisa said quietly. But Tommy, he was crying every night asking about you, and I realized I didn't have the right to keep you two apart. Whatever I did, whatever is between us, he didn't do anything wrong. No, he didn't. I stood up, keeping my hand on Tommy's shoulder. He never should have been punished for your choices. I know, Lisa stopped, swallowed hard. I don't have the right to ask for forgiveness, but Tommy has the right to know his grandmother. So if you'd be willing to see him sometimes, maybe on weekends or after school, I can bring him here. Or somewhere else. Wherever you're comfortable. I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. The expensive veneer was gone, but underneath I could see glimpses of the little girl I'd raised. The one who used to help me measure boards in the garage. The one who'd been proud that her mommy built buildings. Maybe that girl wasn't completely gone. You can bring him here on Saturdays, I said carefully. I teach a morning class, but he can hang out in my office, do his homework. We can have lunch together. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. This isn't forgiveness, Lisa. This is for Tommy. You and we have a long way to go. I know. I understand. She wiped her eyes. I'm working on it. Every day. I'm working on being someone worthy of being called your daughter again. Then keep working. I will, Lisa called to Tommy. Come on, sweetie. We need to let Grandma finish her class. But I just got here. You can come back on Saturday, I told him, and every Saturday after that. I promise. No one is taking you away from me again. Tommy hugged me one more time, then ran to his mother. At the door, he turned back. Grandma, can I learn to build things too, like you used to? My throat tightened. Absolutely, buddy. Absolutely. They left. I watched them walk to Lisa's old Honda, not a Range Rover anymore, and drive away. Elena came to stand beside me. How do you feel? Like maybe there's hope. Not now, but someday. That's a start. Yes, I agreed. That's a start. I stood on the stage at the Chicago Women's Business Association annual dinner, looking out at 300 faces. The ballroom at the Palmer House Hilton glittered with chandeliers and formal wear. At my table, Elena sat next to Tommy, now 10 years old and proudly wearing a suit. And now, the MC announced, please welcome our Woman of the Year Award recipient, Sarah Mitchell, founder of the Patricia Mitchell Memorial Trade School. Applause filled the room. I walked to the podium, my hands steady. 2 years ago, I began. I was locked out of my own house by my daughter who had stolen everything I owned. I was 72, recovering from cancer surgery and standing in sub-zero temperatures with nothing but a trash bag of clothes. The room went silent. I tell you this not for sympathy, but because what happened to me happens to thousands of elderly people every year. Financial abuse by family members is the most underreported crime in America, and it's devastating. I told them my story. The diagnosis, the power of attorney, the betrayal. I didn't shy away from the ugly parts, the forged signature, the wire transfer, the moment I realized my own daughter was willing to let me die. But I also tell you this, I continued. I had resources many people don't have. Hidden savings accounts. A lawyer who believed me. The knowledge and strength to fight back. Not everyone has those things. So I'm using this platform tonight to tell you, if you're older, protect yourself. Don't sign power of attorney documents without having your own lawyer review them. Keep some accounts in your name only. Tell someone you trust about your assets. And if you're younger, watching someone you love age, treat them with respect. Their years of experience matter. Their dignity matters. Just because someone is elderly doesn't mean they're incompetent. And taking advantage of vulnerability isn't clever. It's cruel. I paused, looking out at the crowd. The money that was stolen from me was recovered through legal action. I could have kept it. Instead, I started a trade school. Because the best way to heal from being torn down is to build something new. And in the past 2 years, we've trained 65 young people in skills that will support them and their families for life. That's my revenge. Not against my daughter, though she faced legal consequences for her actions, but against the cynicism that says old people are worthless. Against the idea that family can't be held accountable. Against the fear that tells us to give up when we've been beaten down. I gripped the podium. I'm 74 years old. I've had cancer. I've been betrayed by my own child. And I'm not done yet. None of us are done until we decide we're done. So don't let anyone tell you you're too old, too sick, too weak, or too broken. You're not. You're a builder. And builders, we build back stronger. The applause started slowly, then built to a standing ovation. Through the crowd, I saw Lisa standing in the back of the ballroom. She wasn't supposed to be here. This wasn't her world anymore. But she was there anyway, tears streaming down her face, clapping with everyone else. Our eyes met across the room. I nodded. Just once. She nodded back. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was acknowledgement. It was possibility. After the ceremony, I found her in the hallway. You shouldn't have come, I said, Tiati said. I know. I bought a ticket anyway. Used my savings from my accounting job. Lisa twisted her hands. I wanted to hear you speak. I wanted Tommy to see his grandmother honored for something amazing. And I wanted you to know I'm proud of you, Mom. You lost the right to be proud of me when you stole from me. I know I did. But I'm proud anyway. I can't help it. She looked at me with red eyes. You took the worst thing I ever did to you and turned it into something beautiful. That's who you are. That's who I'm trying to become. Are you? Yes. I've been sober for 18 months. I didn't tell you before, but I was drinking a lot. I go to therapy twice a week. I'm working as a bookkeeper. I'm honest now, completely honest, because I saw what lies did to me, to us. I studied my daughter. 2 years of hard work showed on her face. The desperation was gone. In its place was something harder to define. Humility, maybe. Awareness. "Keep going," I said finally. "Keep being honest. Keep showing up for Tommy. Keep rebuilding yourself. And maybe someday we can rebuild us." "I'd like that." Lisa's voice broke. "I'd like that more than anything. But it has to be real, Lisa. Not just words. Not just showing up to events. Real change. Real accountability." "I know. I'm working on it. Every single day." "Good." I turned to go, then stopped. "Lisa, thank you for bringing Tommy to me. That was the right thing to do. It was the least I could do." I walked away back to my table where Elena and Tommy were waiting. Tommy immediately started telling me about everything he'd learned in 4th grade this week. I listened, laughing at his stories, ruffling his hair. And in the back of my mind, I thought, maybe someday when enough time has passed and enough trust has been rebuilt, there will be room for Lisa in this happiness again. But not today. Today, I was the woman of the year. Today, I had a grandson who loved me and a school full of students learning to build their own futures. Today, I was standing in a ballroom full of people who respected me in a dress that fit perfectly with full knowledge of my own strength. Today was enough. Tomorrow, I'd keep building. That's what I do.